From Del Rio, Texas, Rob Wade and Robert Garza. Two guys who dive. This episode of Two Guys Who Dive, recorded live, 12 January 2013, episode 50. Ready, fire, ready, aim. Well, here we are with another episode of Two Guys Who Dive. Not knowing what happened to my my music effect back there, but we just got release candidate number 5 of the software that we use for the podcast here, and it's been going through a roller coaster ride of changes, and I was hoping that they'd gotten a number of the issues fixed from last time. Because last week we had release candidate 1, because we're hoping that we're going to be able to add in the Skype capability, which it's there, but it's got some issues with it. And the problem that we ran into last week was that it pushed my this newer version pushed my CPUs, all 4 of them, to 100%, and we're pretty close to that now. As soon as we started things broadcasting and also recording, so I'll have to send the programmers back the stats on what was going on, because that's pretty tragic. If I have to drop back to the previous version, I will.
So if you see us moving like robots, we're not dancing. It's a technical glitch on the software part. So yeah, just
that's right.
Please bear with us.
That's right.
We're trying to make this like all technology. We're trying to get the most out of everything that's out there, so
that's
that
right.
To reach out to you guys that are out there in cyber world.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, this software has so many features that you would typically find in a $3,000 to $7,000 piece of equipment known as the TriCaster, and it's really fantastic. There's a lot of things that we could do with it, but it definitely puts the strain on the old computer. And I really am going to have to upgrade to a newer machine. It's got an i7. I really am going to have to. I've been reading a lot about taking full advantage of the various features in the software, because this can do the green screen stuff. Mm-hmm. So if we really wanted to get seriously fancy with it, we could have all the full motion backgrounds behind us and everything. We just have to bring in a
green screen,
a green screen, set that up, which would be pretty awesome. But unfortunately, what that does is it taxes the system more, because it's got to put all those layers onto the screen. So my quad core processor, even though it's a pretty fast one, it's not fast enough. It needs to really rock to handle all that stuff. So, and it looks like unless they do something drastic, I'll either have to drop back to the previous version until I can get a more powerful machine, or hopefully they'll be able to tweak this to get some of the speed back, because this is kind of painful. I mean, there's like these huge you see it's like delaying between the audio. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It looks like I'm watching a Japanese movie.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. So how was your week?
Yeah, it was good.
Since you weren't able to be here because we had such a weird schedule for last week, what's been the latest with you?
Nothing, same old. I wish I had a lot more to talk about. Unfortunately, it was a good week, good, calm, can't complain week.
Right.
Again, like I was mentioning to you post show, I actually started a big diet for various reasons. I went to the doctor. I'd been feeling kind of sick. I don't want to say sick. I've been feeling kind of down and tired, and I thought it was time to go to the doctor and see what bad news he had to give me. And of course, you never want to go to the doctor and have them draw blood, because you're going to find something wrong with you.
They will find it.
And like 3 years ago, about 4 years ago, I went to the doctor, and like, of course, I don't eat wells and don't exercise the way I should exercise,
Right.
or one should exercise, should I say? And the hypertension was set in. It was all kinds of stuff. Well, anyway, just the hypertension's good. And
Wait a minute. What do you mean? It's your hypertension's good. You're in good. It's not in a. You didn't. In other words, because hypertension is not good.
Okay. Well, what I mean to say is that when I went 4 years ago, it was bad, and now it's okay. It's back to normal.
Okay, good.
So that's a good thing. But like everything else, they just found all kinds of stuff. So I thought, rather than get on a pill, because obviously there's pills for everything nowadays, I don't want to do that. So I thought it's time for me to change my lifestyle. So I'm changing how I eat, what I eat, the amount of exercise, and it's just time.
Yeah, time. Oh my gosh.
Yes,
so,
time is
cool.
It's here. So.
Time is money. No, wait a minute. Something like that. I'm not sure.
So what's going on with you? By the way,
yes.
Troy wanted me to mention. Have you heard about that? That the powers that be want to put Obama's face on Mount Rushmore.
What?
Yes.
No way.
Uh-huh.
They'd better not even.
Yeah, supposedly there's talks about putting President Obama's face on Mount Rushmore.
No, I'm sorry.
Well, what is your take on this? Come on, let's open it up.
That's the first I've heard of that. I'm sorry. They have some absolute icons in our presidential history there. And I'm sorry. There is, and I know I'm gonna upset some folks out there, but I'm sorry. Our current president has done nothing so remarkable that it warrants the kind of time and money that it would take to do that. The last person that went on there was who?
I have no idea. My mind went blank.
All those people up there have done significant things that are unique. Matter of fact, I wonder if I can find a picture of Mount Rushmore on there.
I got one.
Wait, you what?
Yeah, I got one. I superimposed President Obama's face on
No,
it.
you didn't. Did you really?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I was going to say.
No, I wouldn't want to insult those faces.
Matter of fact, I don't even think there is room to do it. Let me see. There we go.
See, Troy, you tempt me. I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were tweeting
Let's find a good picture. Oh, that's a good one. If I can open this thing up. This will be interesting. I've had this scene set up actually for... Oh, that'll work. Okay, so I think this is as good as it gets. I just can't see... He has done nothing that reaches their level. I'm sorry. He's done nothing. I don't care if he's the first African-American president. That he's done nothing unique. Now, Lincoln, who our current president likes to think of himself as being something like, which he's nothing like.
No.
Lincoln actually accomplished something amazing. And he pulled together a nation that was literally falling apart. And
he also hunted vampires.
I just don't. And of course, if you watch National Treasure, you know that all of the Mount Rushmore was just an elaborate scheme to cover up the City of Gold, anyways.
Oh yeah, there you go. City of Gold's under there. It's behind them.
It was a massive cover up. So, hey, is that the Geico gecko up there in
there? He's right there.
That's amazing.
He's hanging out of the eyeball.
So, yeah. No, I'm sorry. There is no. I will be one of those that votes against any waste of money on something like that. I'm sorry. That's just wrong. Hopefully that's just some crazy people, just like the same idiots that are trying to go for the gun control, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later. So anyway, fire ready aim, which is alluding a little bit to that. But also it's wanted to talk about communication, which of course requires, proper preparation, which using a weapon should require proper preparation. But we have a number of ways that are used to communicate underwater. Now, of course, at first, anybody thinking about, or just that's not a diver, thinking about how communicating underwater, they're like, well, what's that like? I mean, you've got a regulator in your mouth and you're underwater. You can't talk like fish or dolphins or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we communicate?
We're so in sync that
we read each other's minds. But we have a number of ways that we can communicate, and we teach the most basic ones, the core ones, of course, in the class, mm-hmm. which involve hand signals. Now, I happen to have here just a sample chart of some of the hand signals that we use when we're teaching the class. And here comes Chiana, one of our dogs, probably going to be asking to have attention. But here you see some of the basic signals that we use. The OK sign, which is pretty obvious, self-explanatory. And then, though we typically don't use this second one as the response, we simply respond with the exact same signal. But I have seen this used on a few places where it's just when it's asked as a question, the three fingers go up, and if it's as an answer, the three fingers go down. When you are doing a deep water entry, typically from a boat, and you come up, you want to use that third one as a single signal for OK, because you'll probably be bouncing around the waves, and the boat is bouncing around the waves, and it's going to be harder for them oftentimes to see just your hand really well. So you do the big circle over your head. The other version is single hand, especially if you've got like a dive light or camera or whatever in your hands, and you only have one free, then you use the single. And then you see some of the other signals for emergency or waving your arms, which, some of these are obvious, instinctual. Mm-hmm. Having a trouble, what he's doing there is, I'm gonna pop back to, what he's basically doing is this, and then you point to where you're having the problem. If you're having the problem with the ears, or with the mask, or with the air, or whatever, there's a number of things you can follow that by. There we go. And signals for ascending. Notice that it's the thumbs up, and you don't use that to signal you're okay. That's something we have to kind of get students over with. But these are just some examples, and there's tons of them that are available. And of course, communication via communication using hand signals doesn't cost you anything. You have the ability to do that yourself. So that's the most basic way of communicating with each other. And as long as your visibility is good and you are within a decent distance of each other, obviously, you're able to get each other's attention and communicate.
That's correct.
Sometimes you have to, you really need to get in the habit of working out any differences in your hand communication with your dive buddy, if that's someone that you haven't been diving with before, because quite frankly, you maybe find yourself diving with somebody from another country or another part of the country, and so they may have certain signals that are slight variation, but in a dire situation, you may find yourself kind of doing the what
Yeah.
What was that? Was that English you were signing to me? I don't get it. What was that? What was this thing? What? I don't get it. Which you hate to have that happen. And when Tara and I have gone on these dive trips to Cozumel and places like that, we do often run into folks from other countries that are there diving.
I was gonna just bring that up since you mentioned that. Are these signs universal, or are they like
Mostly.
Because I know that there's different types of dive organizations, and
True.
So do they teach the same? Are they different?
Generally, they do, at least the U.S. ones, but there are some that are that are not necessarily like PADI or SSI. They're not necessarily international. They're regional. They're in Europe or they're in South America or whatever. So they may have some variations on these. So if you find yourself diving with somebody you've never been diving with before, it's a good idea to kind of get together and say, all right, let's go over some basic hand signals. So, how did you learn to do the signal for okay or for ascend or descend? Some of the basic ones you would absolutely, you really would need to go through. How do you signal that you're low on air, out of air? Give me your alternate, or you just start grabbing.
Right. This brings up that question that, when you do your pre-dive check, you always want to make sure that the person you're diving with, if you've never dove with them before, kind of ask some questions. It doesn't hurt. Definitely, it ain't gonna hurt. If anything, it'll just cause you problems in the long run.
Right.
And that's what you want to try to avoid as a good diver, is to make sure that, just get to know the person. If they're gonna buddy you up with somebody that you don't know, ask them, hey, how many dives do you have? You might find that you're more experienced than your buddy, so you may have to rely on your own skills to kind of watch over them.
Right. So, and it just makes you a better diver anyway. And the more you know what's going on with your buddy, and the more they know about what's going on with you, then you can really relax and enjoy the dive. Because who wants to go to these really nice places? Oh, she is not going to let up. You don't want to go to these really nice places and then be kind of stressed out over whether or not you're communicating well with each other. I think I shared this on one of the previous podcasts. We were on a dive. This was Curacao, and one of the people that was on the dive, this was like her 9th dive ever, including her certification dives.
Oh, wow.
So when she mentioned that, of course, obviously the captain of the boat, who was also going to be going on the dive with us, said, okay, I'm going to buddy up with you. But of course, I knew his attention still had to be on the whole group. Even though most everybody was pretty experienced diver. But as an instructor, and obviously, somebody who's rescue trained, my feelers went up. And so I'm like, okay, I will be also paying attention, because if something happens to somebody else and he gets distracted or has to deal with them and then she gets into trouble, then having somebody who's specifically paying attention, it's important to have that backup. So, thankfully, no real issues. She, her buoyancy control was from hell, but, but, nothing too serious. He was able to keep it under control, help her keep it under control, which wasn't too bad. But, and fortunately she was from the U.S., as most of the divers there were. So communication wasn't so much of an issue, but I could imagine if her situation was that she was that inexperienced and from another country, and there was a communication gap.
Yeah.
You would hate to have that happen. She's indicating a problem, and the only thing you could hope, and if she's using different signals, the only thing you could hope to do is recognize the beginning onset of panic, which would, what you would probably see in a newer diver.
Yeah.
So hand signals, cheap, as in free, way to communicate. Now, if you want to spend a little bit of money, there are some other things that can help you out. And among those, and yet another dog barking or whining at me here, are the shakers, which you have advertised.
Yes.
You've done your little commercial for this particular company before.
That's
and correct. Awesome colors, and they have slightly different sounds to them because they use different lead combinations or ball bearing combinations in them. I got dogs crawling.
Some make like a rattling sound, others make like a bell type sound. Yep. They're unique to the diver.
Right.
I have the orange ones.
I have a different brand, but I have the yellow one, and Tara has, I think, a blue one.
Yeah.
And then also, as another form, are these tank bangers, and these are just basically rubber tubes with a hard plastic ball on them, And these typically go around your tank, which is why they're called tank bangers. Or you could use your dive knife. And you should be diving with a dive knife. So most of them come with a hardened heel on them. If not metal, certainly a hardened composite or plastic. And you can just reach back behind you and wrap on the tank. But all of these are meant as ways to get the attention of your dive buddy or other divers if there's an issue. Sometimes they're used to get attention, especially if somebody's leading a dive and you see like a turtle or some other thing that you want to get, especially those with cameras. Hey, come over here. So you can use one of these methods, a shaker or a tank banger or your dive knife against the tank to get their attention so that you can use your hand signals. Yeah. Because a lot of times you may get distracted, or your buddy may get distracted. Ideally, you stay close enough, obviously, that that you stay close enough together that you can get each other's. A special guest appearance by Chiana. Hello, say hi to everybody. Yes, on camera. That you can get their attention by waving or whatever. But sometimes they might be taking pictures or videotaping or whatever, and you need to get their attention. So rather than waste time trying to swim after them to catch up or get their attention, you've got some sort of a noise-making device.
Yeah. I've been thinking, now that you're mentioning all this, I've been thinking about over the years of us diving and stuff.
Yeah.
How many of the people that we dove with that didn't have any kind of signal device?
Yeah.
I think, and I'm trying to remember, I don't think of any of them.
I can literally count on one hand the number of people that, when we've gone on dive trips to places, who have had any kind of alternate communication or safety equipment. Last week I talked about some of the pieces of equipment that would be must-haves if you're going to do solo diving, or what they call self-reliant diving. And of course, not one but two types of the signal sausages are important, and I almost never see anybody carrying those.
Yeah.
I always do. Or a mirror, so when you're on the surface reflecting the light, the sun, to potential rescuers. Tara must be printing. Signaling to them with that, or a whistle, or that kind of thing. I don't see that very often, and so it's kind of scary when you think about it, that we're out there with a lot of people who could get potentially into problems and would have no way to notify, to let somebody know.
And again, it goes back to, I always joke about redundancy.
Yes.
I do carry the shaker, and plus I also have a whistle. And,
yep. Me too. Actually, I have two, because my snorkel has one built into it.
Yeah.
So,
these things are important, guys. You gotta start thinking about your safety,
right?
And I'm gonna talk about safety here also in a little bit when we start talking about guns.
Yeah.
But especially if you're diving, you need to think about your own safety as well as your buddy, obviously.
Right.
But ultimately, you come first.
Right.
It's something that we talk about during your rescue training. I can't rescue if you drown me. So
right.
You gotta think about your safety before trying to save somebody else. And obviously, if you can't successfully or safely save someone, then
you need to just watch.
You just need to watch
what's going on.
Yeah, and
take a lot of good mental pictures of everything, so that you can direct proper rescuers or recovery efforts. It's important.
Yeah, it's
So a shaker or a tank banger, or using the heel of your dive knife. I find the shaker really convenient, and I'm sure you do for the same reason I do, in that you can easily attach it to a D-ring, and so it's right there. Yeah. So with a tank banger and with your dive knife, it'd be a situation where you have to twist your arm behind you to actually activate it. With a tank banger, they're always there because you're attached to your tank, but you still have to kind of reach back and find it, and then stretch it out and let it smack to the side of the tank. Oh gosh.
And the actual rattles and whistles are usually somewhere up here, up close to you.
Right.
So you can just, they're closer to your face, so you can just grab it and just shake it and
shake it,
shake it, baby.
That's right. That's right.
But no, they work great, and yes, I've actually used mine, and Rob came to my rescue.
Yes. So it does work, folks.
Because
you got to use that stuff. It
and
does
sometimes
work.
your buddy ain't paying attention.
Yeah, gotta hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
So
let's move on.
Yeah. So the shakers and the tank bangers, etc., are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there may be also some situations where you need more communication than what hand signals can give you, or you may need additional help to improve the communication that you're engaging. Even in daylight, having a dive light is a good idea. So bring that up. Having a dive light is a good idea, and you see a number of different sizes here. Typically, you see what your.
That's the one I found. The
one on the bottom left.
Yeah, bottom left.
Yep, that was awesome.
And
light.
I still use it, and it works
awesome light.
Great.
But you see a number of different sizes there. Typically, your primary is going to be what they call a pistol grip type, and then your BC light or your backup is going to be something along the lines of the bottom two. And you see how easy it is to a lot of those can either slip on a D-ring or go into your BC pocket, or a number of different ways you could attach it. But we always dive with at least the backup light, the BC light, because it's so easy to attach, so easy to pull out if you need it. And so if you're in areas where the visibility is not as good and you need to signal your buddy, again, maybe the shaker is not a good idea. If you have your dive light in hand, you can wave the light across their path and they might be able to see it, especially obviously at night. And that's how, a matter of fact, that is a way that you use your light in a night dive, is you wave it, in a line across their path, so it gets their attention. It draws them to you. Also, either daylight or in a night dive, a dive slate. Oops, beeping. Dive slate, and those come in tons of different models. You see one that can go around your arm, or it can go along around your leg, or just simply attached to your BC. But typically, they're just a regular graphite pencil. Because those work underwater, believe it or not. I think I freaked a couple of people out a time or two. We're like, oh, surely that pencil's not going to work underwater. I said, well, no, it works great. Graphite pencils, not the cheapo ones, but the regular graphite pencils work really well underwater. And so if you need to communicate more detail than a hand signal, you could spend all day, look like you're dancing practically, using hand signals to get, or if actual sign language for the deaf, where you can actually do full letters and words and stuff. Most people don't. And so you can get to a point where the level of detail, especially as an instructor or dive master, where the amount of detail you need to communicate to them or get as a response from them is much easier if you have a dive slate handy. So this is and these cost a little bit more.
Yeah.
But they're well worth it. They come in handy.
I
used them many times.
Yes. Actually, we used that. The first time I actually saw the dive slate being used was during my advanced open water when we did our deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
When we had to do that problem solving.
The problem solving at depth,
At depth. And that is really neat. You won't believe how neat that is.
Yeah.
So,
and sometimes it's just really cool when you're trying to point out something to look at underwater. If you have the time, some things, some of the aquatic life moves very quickly, but what you have when you have time, especially if you're like diving a wreck and you want to point out, there's this really cool part of the ship you want to go to or whatever, it's really easy to just write it out. So dive slate's a good opportunity to to add to your potential repertoire of equipment. Now, these are all relatively inexpensive ways to communicate,
Yes.
but
There's an expensive way to communicate.
there's an expensive way that used to be a lot more expensive than it is. It's gradually coming down in price. I've been amazed. And we're talking about radio communications underwater. Now, this is getting cheaper and cheaper. Still not inexpensive, but it's the prices are coming down. The features and reliability are going up. And it's not going to be long before this kind of thing is more common with divers, because quite frankly, there is just simply nothing like being able to just flat out talk to each other underwater. Now, the obviously some of the downsides to the equipment is you have to learn, as you'll see in a demonstration that we've got here. And let me go ahead and pull up the kind of equipment we're talking about. I think the best looking and least expensive setup I've seen out there is by Ocean Reef, and this is their Neptune. Wow, it doesn't seem to be going live out there. I can't tell. This is the Neptune system. Now, what's neat is it's a full face mask setup, but the communication system actually can be upgraded. They have a number of different types. They have one that that's a dual channel, so that you could have like two different sets of divers that they could still dial into the same channel and talk to each other, but you could split off into two teams kind of thing.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
cool.
it was pretty cool. It's got its own built-in regulator, and
That looks cool.
it is
I
a
like
very nice system, and it's full. It straps around everything, so you got a full behind the head strapping system. Very difficult to flood these things. Not as difficult as you might think to clear them.
How would you equalize?
Well, that's just the thing. The way they advertise this, because of the way the pressure inside the because you are breathing from a regulator.
You're using your nose.
Yeah, but no, you're breathing full face.
Yeah,
So there is no equalization. It is automatic because you don't have just the just that in your.
That's right. Okay.
So everything.
I getcha.
All of it is equalized.
Yeah.
So they say you virtually have no issues with that because it's the way the mask is designed.
That's the mask that Jacques Cousteau wanted to get.
Yeah.
That he said that he got, and who knows.
Well, I've got
A
a
video?
video.
Oh, cool.
On a show.
I've never seen a video on this.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. Let's see if I can get it going here. And this is from Ocean Reef, and they're demonstrating how the features here. And now the classic sounds of Ocean Reef. It's pretty cool. So here's how you clear it. If you do get water in it, now obviously he's burping the top of the mask to let some water in. So you literally just push the purge,
Wow.
and it clears the whole mask. That quick.
That's it.
And then you
Pull the straps back.
tighten the neck straps. Now this is pretty cool. I was like, okay, so how easy is this to remove compared to just a mask? So he's going to his alternate. I was watching on this to see if he was letting the little trail of bubbles out. He was doing it through his nose, but that's fine. So he's making sure the straps are loose. And he's hooking behind. Pulls it over his head. And then just before he pulls it down, he swaps out. And then again, you purge. See how fast that clears?
Yep.
And then you make sure everything's placed behind you properly behind the head. And then you tighten the straps back up.
That's pretty neat. right, he's taking it off again. See, the cool thing is, though, he's not panicking. He's very calm and just...
Exactly. And, of course, this is like instructor quality demonstration, too. So it's very methodical, showing exactly in slightly exaggerated motions.
You can see the mask.
Yeah. So there he's actually using
he's
the
breathing
exhale.
out.
Yeah, the same way you would a regular mask. And again, you tighten up the straps.
Oh.
Now he's doing out of air machine. I was curious to see this one. So obviously it's very much, this part works just like the way you would with a non-full face mask setup. And then you have, and I was like, okay, he's got to have a spare mask, which it makes sense. In a normal clear, locking in the Roman handshake, hands on the position for the
ascent.
Then proper communication. He's pointing out that the push to talk button is on his left side. And then the earpiece is right there, and you can turn it up or down. Now this was pretty cool. You got to make sure that there is enough room for air to escape through there. Now, if you get a free flow, because this would be me, I've inverted all the time. That's the air where the air escapes. So there is an adjustment on the side that creates some resistance, so you're less likely to free flow.
Wow, they thought of everything.
This is a brilliant setup.
Yeah.
So you just pull on the straps, the neck straps, pull up and over. That's all there is to it. Ta-da! And there went my phone. So is that not cool?
That is cool.
And that rig with the basic communications package is running at about 900 something.
When a friend of mine was thinking about getting that very same setup,
right?
I think it was retailing for about 1,700.
Yeah, like I said, those have dramatically dropped in price, and which I'm glad to see, because that puts it closer and closer to being in a decent range for your recreational divers, and because that's who the target audience is.
Right. The other thing too is if you're thinking about getting something like that, you saw the video, I guess take some time. You're gonna have to obviously get used to it, practice with it.
Right.
I think for me, if I saw something like that, I'd have to be like, okay, show me how you take it off and show me how you take it on. So in the event something happens, I'd be able, me as a rescue diver, I'd be able to perform, take it off. And, but no, I think that is awesome.
Cool.
It is pretty cool.
Now there's a more expensive version that actually has the LED lighting built into the top part of the mask, and then that pushes it to about 1,200. And
it's made also by
Ocean Reef.
Oh wow!
So that is the pièce de résistance, as they say, of underwater communication, and I have no doubt that I'll get to that point. I have no doubt.
The way I'm thinking is this mask, the underwater communication, is what we're seeing here is the beginning of back when computers were first introduced for diving.
Right.
Because before there was just analog.
Right.
And then slowly
Depth
computers
gauge
started coming in, and people probably were thinking the same thing. This isn't going to catch on.
Right.
They're too expensive. I can't afford, and things like that. And as technology got more advanced, they got cheaper and smaller. Granted, a good computer is not cheap by no means, but they monitor your heart rate now. They pretty much they can do a lot of stuff. Yeah. So I see this probably like you said, probably moving to something like that later on.
Yeah. See, for you and I, this kind of thing would be perfect for like night diving.
Yeah.
And because we're more avid divers, so being able to go on a night dive and communicate easily with each other underwater would be fantastic. So for
I would think that would probably also come in handy for more deeper dives.
Well, yeah,
because
yeah.
I don't know. I just think it would be easier. You wouldn't have to be worrying about equalization.
Right.
You could just focus on just diving and enjoying your dive and going deep. And then, of course, the deeper you go, the more challenges come up. So that being able to talk and say, hey, what's going on? And, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm not feeling.
Yeah, exactly. We get to the point where I'm trying to take pictures, and then suddenly I'm getting that
feeling,
that little bit of euphoria, that rapture of the deep kind of thing happening. Yeah. Say, hey, check me. Am I drifting away or something?
You're actually floating upside down.
What? Well, that's my normal way of diving is upside down. It's if I'm not going in the direction I think I'm going, that's the problem.
Thing is, I would be able to ask you is, are you doing that on purpose?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, really, that would come in handy to if you had a bunch of divers. Noah just jumped in. He says he's watching. Well, Noah, if you're watching, jump in the chat room for ustream.tv where the show is going on. You can actually chat with us live on the show. We always have that going. So, yeah. So glad to see you out there, Noah. I spent basically the better part of the day with Noah and his dad. They updated their laptop to Windows 8.
Oh, okay, cool.
So they were wanting to, and they were doing the upgrade, so they didn't want to lose any of the stuff that they had. So, of course, the update part wasn't such a big deal, but making sure that because they use it they do homeschooling, so they want to make sure that their software they're using, SOS homeschooling software, would work okay. If there was no the Upgrade Assistant didn't flag it as having any problems with it, so I didn't anticipate a problem with it, and it worked actually very easily. But I was then showing them, okay, here's some games and some apps and stuff that you may want to kind of saying here's your starter kit, some really good things, based on what you guys.
Angry Birds.
One of the games, of course, that I've got on the laptop here is Hydrothunder Hurricane, which is a pretty awesome game. And he Noah just said, and we're gonna kick your score on the Hydrothunder to the curb. Yeah, right. The neat thing about the game, we're so totally going off the rails here. Neat thing about that game and some of the other Xbox Live type games that are on Windows 8 is doesn't have a true multiplayer aspect in the sense of like Call of Duty or any of those, but there is a competitive option. Yeah, right. As we're going, in your dreams, Noah. But if you do the Ghost Race option, and any of your friends are playing that game, you can actually race against them. So I've gone through all the different tracks and got some pretty decent scores. And so since Noah is my friend on Xbox Live, and he went into the Ghost Race thing, and he saw, well, who would of my friends would I be competing against to beat their time? Of course I'm on all of them. So now he's hooked on the game, as his dad is too.
Oh wow!
So
awesome.
they're now yeah, right. I don't dream. So they're hoping to get practice up enough to beat me. Now the neat thing about the Ghost Race game is it literally will take the race you did, the way you played it. So it's kind of like watching your replay.
Oh, cool.
So you literally are racing the person you're trying to beat. And so so you can you're literally following there. It's kind of like doing a replay in one of the first person shooters or something. It's like to see, well, how did that game go? Well, here you can race against that, which is pretty cool. Wow. So now they, Of course, it's so funny when he tried to do the ghost race against one of the maps on the first maps that were out there. You know, it counts down. You start, and of course, you see my from my fastest race. You see mine like launch out, and it just leaving him in the dust or in the spray. I guess it would be.
Well, it's kind of like with me. There was a game I was playing on my computer, the Black Hawk Down, and one of the maps I'm playing a bunch of guys from England. And these guys
from across the pond.
From across the pond.
All right, that's good.
I'm connecting to a remote to the server on NovaLogic, and it's actually the server's located in England. So,
all right.
These guys must be probably military or they're good. I mean, they're really good.
Wow.
And just the way they communicate with each other, because they got a team going. So the way they communicate with each other, I know that they're military. Well, they kind of found all my sniper spots.
Oh no!
Yeah, so I kind of that's the first thing when they see that I log on to the map, they start gunning for me. So I have to. I haven't played in a while, but I logged on over the Christmas holiday, and they were waiting for me to just log on.
Wow, we're gonna get some serious score building up on this guy, right?
Yeah.
We're going to school on you, buddy.
So I've
kind of like I'm going to take Noah to school on this.
So normally I go way out of the map area because I snipe. So what I've done is, well, I don't want to give away my secrets,
right.
But what I've done is gone into the city now.
Ah,
yeah. There's a lot of action within the buildings. So yeah.
You know, one of the disappointments I have, well, two of the disappointments I have with at least the PC version of Black Ops 2 is I just think that the models, the character models move way too fast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, doesn't seem realistic at all. And so I find these incredible. I'm like, how in the world do you move like that? Black Ops 2 and Modern Warfare 3, those had what I felt were more realistic movement patterns. So I'm not.
Are you talking about like when you're running? Like, you know, you can tell when you're running, you're not sprinting. I mean, you're running, it's fast, but
their sprints are incredibly fast. I'm like, nobody in the real world moves
that fast.
Yeah. So I think there's some tweaking they need to do with the engine on the game. And then what was the other thing that?
Well, the thing is, they got a blood transfusion from Lance Armstrong, so they're super fast.
Oh, they were doping.
Oh,
now I get all these notifications on all of my systems. It's pretty cool. So, what do you say? Black Ops 2 Zombies is pretty much better than than Mom's chocolate chip cookies. No, nothing's better than Mom's chocolate chip cookies. I'm sorry to tell you. Chocolate chip cookies are not to be beaten. It's that simple. So, that was the big thing. There was one other thing I was going to say. I can't remember what it was. Darn. It'll probably come to me after we finish the podcast.
Or the cookies from Quiznos better?
Those are okay, but not like fresh baked.
Well, you know what? You buy those cookies. I didn't know that because we went to go eat there the other day.
Yeah.
Sandy and I. And you can ask them to put them through the oven.
What?
Yeah. They'll tell you want that heated? And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, we'll put it through the oven. And it comes out like it was just baked, Rob.
It says awesome. Those cookies are too big. What? You're talking about Quiznos? No, are you talking about Quiznos cookies being too big?
They're awesome.
They're not that big. Matter of fact, I actually like to make them bigger homemade. So they like flop around. I want them where they just you put it on your fingers. They just kind of drape over.
Rob takes a sandwich down plus a cookie.
That's right. That's right.
That's during the dive though.
Yeah, that's kind of tough. What's he saying? They're okay. Yeah, right. How often do you eat at Quiznos, Noah? Yes, your mom has great cookies because she's cooked for a number of things, but I don't know. Tara does a pretty good job too. So anyway, that's some of the communication ways you can communicate underwater. And so there's a lot of folks out there that may not be that conversant with that. And so if you're thinking about diving, that just adds a little bit more information, gives you another tool in the toolbox, as they say, to think about. if you want to get into diving, which we highly encourage.
Yes.
Because it is easy. It's a lot of fun. You may have a little hang up or fear or two to overcome, but that's what we're there for, is to help you through that process. So, so speaking of fear, uncertainty, and doubt,
okay,
the big topic that will push us over time, but because it's such a hot thing, and to me, it's just something that's really important to talk about, is the gun control debate. Now, there's a lot of emotion out over this topic. I've got a number of notes here just to kind of keep us in line with keep the talk moving. But it seems clear to me that FUD, as we call it, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, is really what's driving a lot of the debate. Now, obviously, there have always been those who don't really feel that the Second Amendment is that important, that we really don't need it anymore because we have a military, blah, blah, blah. And so they've always had on their agenda to eliminate personal ownership of weapons of any type, certainly of anything larger than a simple handgun. But, of course, as expected, when you have tragedies like the Newtown and the Aurora, this ramps a lot of people up, and it gets people who are maybe indifferent to it to suddenly kind of flip to one side or the other of the debate. And one thing that I have seen more frequently than anything, that people who are the most anti-gun have either never handled a weapon themselves, or they've only done once or twice, or they've had a bad experience in some way themselves involving a firearm.
I agree. The people that I've spoken with who are totally against guns and hate them and they despise them, have never really owned a gun.
Yeah.
It's just something that's been instilled in them. I guess as a child growing up, guns are bad. And growing up, I even heard that as a child growing
really?
up. But it's just one of those things that I don't. It's they've been around for so long, and things, we wouldn't have what we have right now if it wasn't for
America wouldn't exist.
Exactly. Quite frankly, we wouldn't be here right now. So I mean, we'd be here, but things wouldn't be the way they are now without these weapons. Granted, in the wrong hands, they can cause damage and hurt.
Right.
But
so can everything that we have. You cannot go through this life without having something that has a downside to it.
Right.
Now, the sad part is, what we see is these kind of situations, because our media, our mainstream media, is so able to be Johnny on the spot with the news reports and get the helicopters flying over, and they sensationalize it so quickly and to a fervor, to such a point that it makes it, it's hard to word this the right way. It's always a tragedy, but they make it seem like it was a more monumental thing, like it was a war, like going to war, and it's not a war. It's a tragedy that happens, no different than a bus crash that kills 30. Those things. We would love to make vehicles so unbelievably safe that everybody's in Demolition Man, where you have a wreck. Exactly, everybody's encased in foam, and they just pop out of it. We'd love for that to be the case, but there are trade-offs if you want to have the freedom and convenience to utilize technology the way we utilize it. And so the media comes in, they sensationalize this, and I'll be honest with you, this draws attention to the crazy people out there, the bitter people out there who are looking for, well, I'm going to make my mark. And so I have no doubt that the way they cover these things, at least to some extent, influences copycats. Because
Yeah.
you see these things, you hear these reports where, well, this person's been planning this for months, like the kid in California.
Yeah, the one
Went
with
out,
the bomb.
he'd been planning. Well, and then there was another one in California where he took his brother's shotgun and went into the school.
Oh, okay, I
went
didn't
after
hear
him.
about this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, but he'd been planning all this stuff. I mean, these people have been planning these things. It wouldn't matter if you removed the guns from these people. If you made it impossible for them to get them, which you really can never do. There will always be a way for criminals to get guns. Always. Period. End of discussion. You're crazy. You are blind if you actually believe there is a way to completely stop. If you think the war on drugs was bad and you outlaw guns,
Yeah.
you absolutely are in for the ride of your life.
See that's the point. That's talking about drugs and guns and everything else. That is why this is such a hard fight. For one, drugs, there's a high demand. It's
Yeah.
one of those supply and demand type things. And there's so much money that these people are making that they can afford these high-tech, super fast, cyclic rate automatic weapons
Yeah.
that are, only the military can get. And other countries are supplying this equipment.
Right.
Now, if you have the money, then you've got the goods. So how do you combat that? If you go away and say no to guns, then you're pretty much just kind of left twisting in the wind.
Yeah, the criminals will always get weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, what they will do is make criminals out of many of us who were law-abiding citizens. Because I'll be honest with you, if they actually were to outlaw guns, I'd still find a way to get one.
You read about this all the time in the paper where, a federal agent was arrested for supplying, taking weapons across, automatic weapons across to Mexico or whatever.
Fast and Furious. They did such a wonderful job of controlling those.
Yeah. It's out there, guys. And if you trust me, if they don't get them from somewhere, they're getting them somewhere else. It's just,
Exactly. And you know what the fact is, when they did the what they called the assault weapons ban, which it really semi-automatic rifles
that was
are
a joke.
Yeah, those aren't assault weapons. Fully automatic weapons have long been banned, and so only those who are grandfathered into that actually have them, and they're fully registered, so that the government already knows everybody who legally acquired a fully automatic weapon. But back in the 90s, they had outlawed the semi-automatics, the military-style weapons, and the violent crime rate involving firearms went up.
Mm-hmm.
After the ban ran out, because it was only for a fixed time, and more people started acquiring personal weapons, whether it's pistols or rifles, whatever. The actual frequency and numbers of firearm homicides have been steadily dropping. And even these kind of situations like Newtown and Aurora, while they're very sensational and they're big and they were close together as far as time frame, those have actually decreased as well. You see actually bigger ones over in foreign countries, where they actually have much stricter gun laws than we have.
Like in Mexico. I saw it on, God, I can't remember what channel it was, but it was this week. It was in the morning when I was getting dressed to go to work.
Yeah.
To where in Mexico, all handguns they're banned. The citizens over there cannot have guns. Look at it. I'm not trying to put down Mexico, okay, guys? I'm not a political whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that they don't allow their citizens to have guns, but yet they got a lot of guns over there.
That's right.
Okay. They're not allowed to sell toys that are dark colored or anything like that.
That look like they might be
real guns. It's against the law in Mexico to have that. So the guns that they have to be either bright orange, the whole gun.
Yeah.
They have to be in colors that can be distinguished.
And there's a lot more gun violence there.
Yes, you there is.
Yeah, people who want to do harm with guns or any other weapon are going to do it. Now, I wish I'd thought to put this chart up, but I've been posting on Facebook and Twitter. There is a chart that shows from the government the various homicides Matter of fact, maybe I did link to that. Let me check my favorites here. Show sites. Bing. Come on.
They're up there. Is that it?
There we go. Huh?
Oh no, that's a print.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about all this gun stuff. And then I heard I saw this morning in the news where the lieutenant governor of Texas
Yeah.
is emphasizing that all school districts send their teachers for handgun training.
Finally, in Texas, they're doing that.
Oh yeah, except he's run into some serious debate over this. In fact, even the comments based on what I heard on the news that he's saying, send them for gun training, and I kind of started like, I don't think that's such a great idea. Me being a law enforcement officer, I'm not opposed to people protecting themselves. However, if you choose to go to the, for example, if you want to carry a gun and especially in school, my biggest concern is that, let's just say and I've been a teacher also,
right?
That there is an active shooter on campus, and you need to defend yourself, and the situation escalates, and you just start firing rounds. What if you kill a student accidentally?
Right.
You know what? Then you just assumed all of that liability for that loss of life. Now, I don't know how most people would feel about that. I'm sure they're gonna feel more safe thinking, okay, I'm packing a gun and I can do my thing. But how often would you train? How often do you think a teacher would train? You got teachers out there that can't even operate a computer, let alone a gun. There's so many people out there that just refuse to accept, the technology. And then you're going to tell them, okay, we're going to send you to handgun training.
Well, and that's why, as with so many other things, this isn't necessarily for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that in San Antonio, there was one of the CCW instructors there that basically he put it out there that any school teachers or principals or whoever who want to get certified, he'll do it for free.
Wow.
And he had to set up additional classes because it quickly filled up. But the thing is, it's not like every one of them, not every school teacher or principal went out there to get trained. Those who felt, you know what, I have a desire to be able to make a difference if it ever comes to that.
Yeah.
And so those are the people that you want. Now, obviously, as a scuba instructor, when I am dealing with students, I ultimately have to decide by the time the course is over whether or not that student is going to be a responsible, safe diver. I have to decide if their ability to accomplish the skills and their level of maturity and responsibility to do that is such that I can go ahead and certify them. There potentially could be, and Patty's standards do allow for me to make the go, no, go choice. And I would assume that a CCW instructor would have the same opportunity. Mm-hmm. If they feel a person cannot properly be trusted to make the right decisions in handling a concealed weapon. Now, that obviously he can't make them not have a weapon.
Right.
But he can decide, you know what, I can't certify you right now. And so that's a way to kind of, that if you're a responsible instructor, that you are part of the safety catch on some people who probably, you're a little too jittery to be doing this.
And, my biggest thing is, I've seen people, I've worked with people who do just the basic annual qualification, and and they're complaining about that. Right. It's like, I got to go out there and do this again. And there are individuals in the profession that I'm in that I've actually worked with who I question their how can I say this?
How can you say it?
How can I say
Oh,
it?
just come out and say it.
Okay. Their reasoning behind doing the job that for me, is you do the job because you want to try to do the best that you can and protect people and try to make at least some kind of difference. Now, am I gonna save the world? Obviously, that's it's not for me to do.
Right.
But there are guys out there that just go and get their paycheck and that's good. They're done. They don't want to do anything over and above that. For me, I always got a lot of slack. I always got a lot of slack over like, you're going to go shoot again, and you're going to go shoot again, and you're going to go shoot it. Yes, because I'm trying to master my profession.
Exactly.
If it comes down to it, I want to go home.
Yeah. If it comes down between you and an evildoer,
I want to go home.
I'm going home.
Exactly. And there are guys that are like, no, nothing's going to happen here. Nothing's going to happen. I'm pretty sure the people in Sandy Brook said the exact same thing.
Exactly right. That was their anticipation.
One thing, and if anybody's out there listening and watching me, please don't come up to me and tell me nothing's going to happen here. Because I got a lot of teachers that come up to me and they're telling me nothing's ever going to happen here. This is just a waste of time. All you're doing is inconveniencing me and the students by having to go around because these doors are locked. You know what? Tough. You know what? I am not going to pick up the phone and call somebody's parents and say that their children ain't coming home because it inconvenienced you.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is.
Exactly.
Times are getting rough.
Yeah.
They're getting more difficult, and these are just precautionary measures, not only protect the students, but you as well. So don't do it.
Exactly.
Because you know how many times I've heard that in the last 2 weeks? I must have heard it over 100 times. Oh, nothing's ever going to happen here. Yeah, tell that to the
foolishness.
Folks. Tell that to the folks over there in Connecticut and see if you come back.
Yeah, you talk about a sleepy little town that nothing ever happened there, and then this happened.
We're 3 miles away from the Mexican border. We've got a gang problem. We got a drug problem. And if you don't think that there's anything going on here, you're sadly mistaken.
You're clearly not paying attention to even the kids in the school.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you. I deal with the youth at our church, and I've heard the conversations, and I've had the conversations with them. There are such things as bullying going on, and that's exactly what drove these last two events in California and wherever the other one was just recently. These were bullying incidents. When they look back and read what these kids had been writing in Facebook and journals, stuff like that, they were being bullied. This is driving kids to desperation. Mm-hmm. If they're not killing themselves, they're killing each other. Yeah. And so this is stuff that's because we have built a world that has wallowed more and more in a lack of a moral compass. And so what do you expect? They're going to look for people in this world are growing up looking for avenues to hide or alleviate pain. And so they'll use whatever is available. If you remove the most easy thing for them to do, then they'll find the next easiest and the next easiest. They'll use bombs. They'll use shotguns. They'll use poison. They'll use any number of means. I wish I'd pulled the chart up. There's a chart that shows various wrongful deaths. Mm-hmm. And firearms are almost at the bottom of the top 10. It's the bottom of the top 10. You know what the top one is?
Cyberbullying.
No. Smoking.
What?
Yes, smoking by far wipes out all the others. But even above firearms, homicide, actual homicides.
The subject's making me sweat.
Yeah. By even significantly more deaths are caused by other instruments like knives, blunt instruments, that kind of thing. That category is significantly more than firearm deaths. So there are so many things, even wrongful death by doctors.
Oh, yeah.
That happens more frequently than people realize. Mm-hmm. So, and what are we going to do? We're going to we've already made it very, very difficult and expensive for doctors to do their job because malpractice suits. So why does anybody even do that anymore? But The point is, it's tragic when that happens, but we have the Second Amendment. Most people, even pro-gun people, they've never really read the Constitution, looked at what the Founding Fathers were writing in such papers as the Federalist Papers or other writings leading up to what drove them to write the Constitution the way they had. They wrote the Constitution from the mindset of a people who had just kicked Great Britain out the door. And how did they do that? Everybody had their own weapon. They banded together. Great Britain was to them as Washington, D.C. and federal government is becoming to us. And by that I'm saying it had grown so huge and wielded such a heavy hand that they felt, as was stated very clearly and eloquently in the Declaration of Independence, that they had no choice but to sever the bonds that pulled them together with the government of Great Britain. So they finally said, enough is enough. They were significantly outgunned by Great Britain, and yet they believed so strongly that they needed to stand up for what was right and their freedoms that they had to take that task. Now, I am by no means suggesting a revolution, but the very reason for the Second Amendment is so that we would have a ready militia, but it was also so that we could stand up if we had to against a tyrannical government.
Yeah.
That's why it's there. It is proven, and this is again another bit of ignorance of people who are anti-gun. I don't care what you think the likelihood. It doesn't matter what the likelihood you think of our federal government finally going hard over on us. Every major power has experienced this throughout history. The last example was, of course, Germany. They systematically removed personal gun ownership and from the people. So that made them totally subjective to their government. They were literally enslaved by their government to do very evil things. And you don't think that can happen? The more people that go get away from a moral compass, that's where they lead to.
Yeah.
And look at what's happening in Greece and other countries overseas. They're watching their governments who are so swallowed up in socialist spending and paying for everything cradle to grave that they're going broke. And so what did they have to do? They had to have austerity measures, which meant people were not getting as much money, as much of the benefits that they expected. And they're rioting over there. They're getting violent over there. You don't think that can happen here? You're living in a bubble that is just, I hope it never bursts, but you are not going to be used. Those of you who are saying we need to get rid of all these weapons, I hope you never have to come to us and say, defend me against a government or group that is about to seriously put you under.
Yeah.
Look at look at the just riots that we've had in our history, where the police force has not been available to help people out. Look at the tragic results of the storm up in the Northeast.
Yeah.
Not only did you have people literally blasted out of their homes by the storm, but you had the opportunity for all sorts of crime to go on, and nobody could stand against it because the cops themselves, the firefighters themselves were all affected by it. So not only did they have to worry about their own families and lives, but they also had to try to negotiate and navigate through basically storm destroyed areas to try and get to help people. And they can't be everywhere at once. They simply can't. Why would you want to leave yourself if things go completely down the tubes? Because we are a world economy now. All it takes is one major look at what happened just in 2008. We saw the world's economies nearly completely collapse, and it could still happen. I mean, there are many people who are saying we're this close to flipping the switch again.
Yeah.
And if that happens, we may not climb back out of it. So these doomsday preppers, while they're entertaining and some of them are pretty nutty, they're not all wrong.
They're not that far off.
They're not all wrong. There's a kind of comedic saying that says, just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean people aren't out to get me.
Yeah.
So just because there are people out there who are, they're doing the whole, hoarding food and that kind of stuff. Just because they're going all over to that extreme doesn't mean that there isn't the potential for something to happen. If we were ever close to that in history before, we're as close as we ever could get to it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so for people to tell me or you that, you know what, it doesn't make sense for you to have a firearm or to have a semi-automatic, I beg to differ. I thoroughly believe there may be a day where I have no choice but to defend myself. And I don't know who it's going to be against, but it will be somebody intent to do me and mine harm. And I will not be disarmed.
Nope.
I will not be.
Mm-hmm.
Our founding fathers had it right. They were so fearful of a strong federal government. They believed the states should be sovereign. The federal government just pulls it together to keep them honest with each other and to band together against anybody who would assail the United States. They were so fearful of a strong federal government that they specifically wrote the Constitution not to tell the federal government what it couldn't do, but to tell it what it could do. In other words, these are the enumerated powers of the federal government. And yet, unfortunately, we've allowed a progressive attitude of dependency, of socialism and communism grow and infect the judicial system, even to the point where it's made it okay to so broadly reinterpret the Constitution to allow the federal government to now make basically dependents of all the states. It's sad that most of the United States are themselves dependents upon the federal government.
Yeah.
Texas, even to some extent, is, but it is less so than most of the other states, and which is why you've got people leaving California in droves.
Yeah.
They're coming to Texas. Now, you can leave your liberal craziness over there, but you can bring your great ideas and your entrepreneurial spirit. Bring it on.
Bring it.
We got resources to take advantage of that. You can be successful.
Yeah.
But,
the gun issue right now is a huge debate. I mean, it's a huge topic. Whether let's arm teachers, let's just do away with guns. I personally, I don't see it happening. I mean, I don't see it happening, but they are making such a huge deal over this. We mentioned it. Take all the guns away, you're only going to increase the problem.
yeah.
If it isn't a gun, it's going to be a knife. And if it isn't a knife, it's going to be fire. It'll be something.
Do you know we have the highest, when you look at the statistics for percentage of the population who actually owns weapons, whether it's one or several, compared to other nations, ours is clearly number one by orders of magnitude. Yet we are 20th or 29th in the death rate, actual homicide, not including justifiable,
right?
But we are actually like 29th in the world as far as the death rate because of those weapons. Mm-hmm. So what that says is, while we have, by sheer size, because we have 300 million people in the United States, we are always going to have higher numbers of everything than other countries. But as a percentage of people who actually are owning weapons, we are extremely low, meaning that most of the people, an overwhelming majority of the people who own weapons, are very responsible with them. And that's as it should be.
Right.
You go to other countries where they have they've outlawed them, but there are people that maybe still have them. Yeah. But they have significantly higher. Ours is like 2.5 deaths as a rate. I'm like, that's insanely small.
Yeah.
So, but the bottom line is, as society declines, it's going to be more important for us to be prepared for those people who have no moral compass to do something to us, even if it's never the federal government or never the state governments or whatever, even if it's never the government that turns on its people. There are evil people getting more evil, and we have to be prepared.
Yeah.
Because nothing's going to stop them. If they decide they want what you have, they're going to do whatever they need to take it. And I will not be left defenseless. And I simply will not be.
Yeah. Well, luckily because of my profession that I ain't got a problem.
Right.
But,
right.
You know, and even going to like fully automatic weapons, and everybody for some reason, like I want a fully automatic assault rifle. You don't need one. You know, one of my ex colleagues, deputy sheriff that I used to work with,
right,
was like, I don't want it. You know, they were issued to us. You know, when I worked at the sheriff's.
Doesn't want a weapon or what?
No, he didn't want a fully automatic weapon.
Oh, okay.
You know, the weapons that are, you know, for law enforcement, usually they go to full auto, to a 3-round burst, to a single
right.
burst.
Right.
You have a selector switch on these. Well, the 3-round burst is good, but I seldom ever went fully auto because it's just, you know, you get 30 rounds gone in, you know,
quickly,
like 6 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to control when you go full automatic. I mean, in the movies it looks great, but
right.
you know, try that in real life, guys.
Yeah, that little kick back where it just kind of rides upward.
Rides up.
Yeah.
But this colleague of mine, he was like, I'm not gonna do it. Well, you know who actually it is, and I'll say it. It was Troy's cousin, Mac.
Oh, okay.
James. He taught me a lot. Even though, you know, he's kind of funny and everything, but the guy knew what he was, you know, he knows his job, and he's not in law enforcement right now. But he taught me a lot, and he's the one that said, I don't want a fully automatic weapon. I just need a single shot assault rifle. I can do a lot more damage. So we went to training, and sure enough, he showed me a lot that you really don't need that. So I don't know why people are so big on, I want a fully automatic weapon. I want this, I want that. Just get on the regular AR-15. You can do some damage.
I've been, and I've said I'm going to repost this video or retweet and repost this video frequently till this debate dies down. There is a guy who does a very good, about a 5-minute video explaining the misunderstandings and myths about, you know, the AR-15 type. And he does an excellent job. He talks about what's happened before, what's going on now. And, you know, one of the things I saw our idiot vice president comment on, because he's running up this task force, I just don't see the why we would need high capacity magazines. It's not about a need. Our Second Amendment doesn't place any limitations on the weapons that we have and why we'd have them. But he tried to insanely, stupidly make the argument that we're somehow safer if we get rid of 30-round magazines and say we're going to limit it down to 10-round magazines.
They've already done that. They did that in the past. Right,
and it didn't work. But this guy in this YouTube video does an excellent job. He shows the difference between a fully automatic, you know, the M16 and an AR-15. Then he says, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to take a 30-round mag, and I'm going to put 20 rounds in it. So he puts 20 rounds in it, and then he says, I'm going to go in simulating I'm shooting at 2 different targets. So he's got 2 targets out there, and so he's just going back and forth, firing at what you would typically expect at a rate of somebody going into someplace shooting, because you're going to be shooting at different targets typically, because they can't just spray and pray. It's one trigger pull for one fire with a semi-automatic rifle. So he's going back and forth. It took him 15.05 seconds or something like that. It's a little over 15 seconds to go through 20 rounds. Then he said, now I'm going to take, I've got 2 clips here, the 30-round clips, mags, that have only 10 rounds each, simulating the limitation. Now what he's got is one of those little V
he's
deals.
timing the rounds.
Huh?
Is he timing the rounds or what?
He was timing it took him 15 seconds to fire off 20 rounds from that 30-round mag, capable mag. So then he took 2 clips that were taped together with one of those little V-shaped deals. And so they've each got, he said, these each have 10 rounds each. So he said, okay, start the timer. So he goes back and forth, does the exact same thing, same rate of fire. Mm-hmm. He expends the first 10 rounds, pulls the clip, slips the next one in, finishes out the other 10 rounds in the other clip. Mm-hmm. He only lost half a second. So the folly of trying to say, well, we need to limit the rounds, it does nothing for you. If somebody gets, okay, you tell me that I can only have, instead of a single 30-round mag, I can only buy 10-round mags. No problem. I'll get 3 of those. I'll tape them together. And then I can easily knock off the same 30 rounds, losing only about half a second. So what does that gain you? So there's the knee-jerk reaction of people who are emotionally driven on this whole issue. They're forgetting totally or discounting the Second Amendment, period. And they're using false logic and emotion to try to say that we need to place all these limitations. Ultimately, the president of the NRA got it right, even though it was kind of said crassly, but it's true. The best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Yeah. It's that simple.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to, the bottom line is you don't have to purchase a weapon if you don't want to, okay? There are plenty of us who, for whatever reason, either for safety, security, for sport, want to have one or more weapons. The Second Amendment allows for it. It's that simple.
In, I want to believe it was 93, 94, when they had limited the rounds to civilians to 10 rounds.
Yeah.
I remember when I in law enforcement, when I got my gun, I needed the high capacity magazines because I was in law enforcement. So they were available to me, but the mags, it was like pulling teeth to get them because you had to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork. I mean, there was no problem. I just needed to provide the documentation that I was in law enforcement.
Right.
And the magazines came and they were all stamped up like, for government and military use or, law enforcement and government use only. And I mean, they were like stamped all over the place. And it just increased the rounds by 5.
Yeah, exactly.
So because in most high capacity magazines you only get 15 rounds in them anyway.
Right.
But still, they're like, well, those 5 rounds can kill more people. I'm like, so then I'll just get 210 rounds.
Exactly. You gain nothing. Now, the other thing that concerns me, and unfortunately, some gun rights advocates are actually thinking that they're okay with this, and I'm not, is universal registration of all your weapons. Here's the problem with that. Now, I am so fully supporting background checks. I think that is important because at least it should cull the herd of people who shouldn't be, for the most part, from legally purchasing. It still doesn't stop them from illegally acquiring them. Like the guy in with the Sandy Brook, he got those from his mother because she stupidly let him get into her. Evidently, she did have a gun case or safe or whatever, but he had the combination or something. So that was stupid. The kid who was in California, he got his brother's shotgun, who was obviously not responsible in the way he maintained it. But so getting background checks is a great idea. But what they want to do is this universal registration. The sad part about that is it puts you in the same boat as all those people up in New York area that then got put in the newspaper by those idiots in that journal newspaper saying, okay, here are all the people in your neighborhood that own weapons, and here's their names and addresses and phone numbers. So now you're either a target from the wackos out there, or your neighbors are now a target because they're going to say, oh, okay, there's a weapon there, so we're going to hit that house.
Well, no, I see it as like you just opened the door because if you're banning weapons, you just told everybody where you can find a gun.
Right.
So now I'm going to have people trying to break into my house
to get your weapons.
The first thing they're going to do is they're going to steal my weapon.
Now let's take the step up. Take the step up a notch. What if we end up with a tyrannical government that decides, you know what, we're declaring martial law and we need to come to take everybody's weapons. Or what if you happen to be someone who is very, very vocal, as I am, in the political arena, and they decide that they don't like the words that you're using, and you happen to be you were part of that universal registry. Oh, guess what? He's got an AR-15 and a Glock and a Raven P25. And he said some things we think are potentially dangerous. So suddenly you've got folks banging in your door to take your weapons because you're now perceived as a threat to the state.
Yeah. And guess what? You just woke up in communism.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So that's why I have a problem with the universal registration. It opens you up to, it creates a false sense of freedom.
You see, but you just brought up two interesting points, because you brought up the fact that the guy in California grabbed the brother's shotgun, which was, he was negligent and allowed, it was just out there. And then the mother for Sandy Brook, that the son had the combination.
Yeah.
In both cases, that to me, those are like gun owners' faults, because they did not secure these weapons.
Yes.
If you're gonna have a weapon, you're gonna have kids, you need to secure them. I mean, I've said this before. Now, allowing a kid to have your weapon or whatever, I mean, if they're of age, let's just say they turn 21,
right?
You want to go out there and legally go buy a gun, that's on you. But I'm not gonna give you my gun. I'm not gonna let you shoot my gun, and I'm definitely not gonna give you the combination, even though it's like, well, I'm gonna leave. We're going out of town. We're going on a trip.
Right.
You're 18 or 19 years old. I'm gonna leave a gun out here just in case for your own personal protection. I don't think that's a good idea.
No.
Now, if you know your children, I mean, obviously, if you have children, you know your kids. If you don't know them, that's a problem right there.
Right.
But there are a lot of people out there that I know that they train their kids. I've taken my son out shooting.
Troy took their youngest kids out.
He didn't like it. He didn't like it.
Really?
Yeah.
Too noisy?
Well, no, it wasn't noisy. Then again, I mean, he was shooting the hand cannon too. He's small.
Now, was he wearing headphones or earplugs?
No,
okay, good.
Ear
protection. That's
ear
good.
Protection,
That's good.
And glasses.
Good.
Good. But he did fire off a couple of rounds, and he thought, like everything else, he was like, I've shot. I've done this in the games, and I've seen it on TV.
Different.
I'm like, it is very different.
Yep.
It's not the same. He didn't like it. So,
and that's fine.
That is cool, but I know eventually he's gonna get to the age to where he is gonna start liking it.
Yeah.
So, but still, I know my children, and I know if I start seeing something that just is a little off, the way he's acting at home, or if he started, becoming kind of quiet, if he starts, I monitor what he does, even though I don't, my wife doesn't,
and too many parents don't, and so. It shouldn't be a shock if you don't have this close a relationship with your kids. Why would you be laissez-faire, lackadaisical about if you've got firearms or other dangerous things in your house? Why would you make it relatively easy for them to access them?
Right. I mean, if your son comes home or your daughter comes home and they're upset about something and they don't want to talk about it, and you have weapons, you may want to secure that, because you don't know. There's there's so many problems right now with all the social media. There's the bullying. There's so many things going on right now that's just like an invitation for problems. You don't know how many times people come up to me and say, you know what, I want to file a
restraining order?
No, well, I want you to take a report.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, okay, what happened? Well, my daughter was threatened. Okay, well, who threatened her? Well, here it is. It's on Facebook. You can't do anything about that. You have to go to the local police department for that.
Right.
But they're crazy things that people come up to me with. So it's just a matter of time. But if you notice your children and they're a little off, they're not on their game for whatever reason, you may want to talk to them and see what's going on and start getting a little more involved in their life. And that's the only thing I can honestly tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. If communities and the government really want to do something beneficial, is do real root cause analysis. The guns aren't the actual problem. It's the people who are wielding them.
Yeah.
And it sounds cliche to say, you know, guns don't kill people, people kill
It's
people.
true, though.
But you've got to look at the people who are killing people. There are common things about those people. And it's all driven about it. In almost every case, you can find it's emotion, lack of empowerment, and so they end up what's the word I'm looking for? They lash out in the only way that they know. They're hurting, and in no way is this an excuse, because evil exists, and I think you have to combat evil with good, but understanding that there is a root cause to these individuals choosing to do these things. They're using lethal force against people because of a problem, because they have issues, and they're embracing evil. Address those causes. But I think that if the government wants to really get involved in this, what they need to do is work with communities, law enforcement, etc., to increase the level of understanding and education and awareness of, if you have a Second Amendment right to own a weapon, if you choose to exercise that right, here are, in this modern day and age, the realities of things that threaten you being a responsible person to own a weapon. So here are your tools. We are going to help give you the tools to be responsible. That means learning how to handle it, clean it, fire it correctly. Here, this is how to secure it properly, under what conditions you probably want to err on the side of caution and not allow X, Y, and Z access to your weapons. Here are the safeguards that you should really engage in. That is the best way to do it. Educate people on the being responsible at it.
Yeah.
Cars kill so many more people than guns do. And yet we force now everybody to go through. When I went through school, driver's ed was an option. Now it's a requirement.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that, because we're allowing people who are basically immature and irresponsible, 16 years old, to go out and drive with a weapon, with 4 wheels and big engines, and they go do stupid things like show off to their friends. It hurts and kills thousands of people every year. But we don't just outlaw that. We don't say, okay, now the driving age is 21. We say, let's further educate them, because the benefits of being able to drive far outweigh the potential dangers. So you mitigate it the best way you can, and that way is education. I think that is the best way we do this. We take the emotion out of it, and we apply some common sense and logic, and not step over the Constitution in the process.
I agree.
So, well, I think we've pretty much beat
this one
topics, but we're on record.
We are on record.
We're on record.
You know, if you are a gun owner and want to try to help and eliminate a possible problem, start looking into trigger locks, gun safes. And again, the most important thing is make sure they're in places to where people don't know where they're at, except you and probably whoever is an adult in your house.
Yeah.
And also just keep them away from your children. I know there's a lot of people out there, and if you're gonna allow your children to, or show them how to shoot, like I showed my son and stuff, the only thing as a law enforcement officer, be responsible with that. Yeah. Because you're taking on a huge responsibility.
Exactly.
And just monitor your children. Yeah. A lot of these things that are happening, they're not happening with, we hear about people going into schools and stuff like that, are usually teenagers that are doing it. I haven't heard of an adult doing it yet, but we as adults have issues as well. The economy's a problem.
Despair happens.
Everything happens, and that is just a tool. Yeah. And people think that this is an easy way for me to relieve my issue. And it's not. So just be careful and lock your weapons away. Yeah. And,
a good, and just like with diving, where if you want to better prepare yourself to become a diver or be a better diver, you go to people who for whom that is an enthusiastic part of their lives, instructors, professionals, or just extremely experienced divers. Same thing with weapons. I tell you, I learned, one of the guys that I work with is a competition shooter. He and his wife both are. So they fire a number of types of weapons competitively. And in fact, Tara's twin sister is a competitive shooter. Mm-hmm. I learned more about responsibility and choice of weapon, what makes sense. I learned more from him just by talking with him. So find those people. If you own a weapon and you just realize, you know what, I really haven't been responsible with this. Seek those people out. Seek your professionals out. Law enforcement, somebody who is one of those diehard competitive shooters, because they are very, very safe with those weapons. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, they're probably more anal retentive about that stuff than even law enforcement officers are, because they realize the potential there from a civilian standpoint. But seek those people out. Just like with diving, you seek out the professionals and the experienced people. Do the same thing for those. If you're looking into getting a firearm, or if you already have one or some, and you realize, you know what, I probably could beef up my my behavior patterns around this.
Yes.
They are some great resources. Take advantage of that. You don't have to throw everything, like, oh, I'm going to sell back my gun. No, just become responsible.
Mm-hmm. That's the key right there.
Yeah. Yep, that's it. Well, let's hit the administrivia real quick. Administrivia real quick. So, all right, our next dive club meeting coming right up. Woo. 17 January. Almost got a dive in today, but the weather didn't turn good until it was too late. So I was like, I'm not going to get things.
It's kind of cold all day for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, the sun came out about 2:30. I'm like, well, now it does. If it had come out at noon to start baking things up, I had somebody lined up out at the base he's from California.
Cool.
So we were going to hit the water, but man, it just stayed nasty until then. I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to get back to the house, get myself ready and go out there and air up his tank, because he's got a 130.
Oh my gosh.
Well, he's from California, so
that's like a wow.
Yeah, really. So I didn't get to dive today. So anyway, 17 January at Rudy's Restaurant. Love to have you there. And our Balmoral State Park trips for next year are 17 through 19, or this year, 17 through 19 May, 14 through 16 June, 19 through 21 July, and 16 through 18 August. And we really encourage you to go out to the Balmoral State Park website and sign up for one or more of those dates. We'd love to have you out there, because we have a gosh darn great time when we go out there.
And they sell those ice creams. What do you call them?
The Grizzlies.
The Grizzlies.
And I can't believe we still don't have that at a Walmart here. I keep checking every time we go grocery shopping. They got the other kinds but not the Grizzlies. Those are just absolutely.
And who makes those things again?
Those are Bluebell. Bluebell Grizzly ice cream bars are awesome. So, listen, we appreciate Noah. You're probably already asleep, or you're hot in the middle of trying to play Hydrothunder and failing dismally at beating my score. But keep on trying. This is America. You can still keep trying for that brass ring. But so we appreciate folks checking us out either live or catching us on YouTube and Vimeo. And here we are on a brand new. He's actually watching. Well, good. And you're playing Hydrothunder as well, right? So, yeah. So we definitely appreciate everybody who's been watching the podcast and talking to us, and we always like hearing from you if you've got any ideas or suggestions. And so we'll wrap it up for tonight. Ran long as usual.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week on another episode of Two Guys Who Dive.
Good night.